Right, welcome back to the Dope Stroke Show podcast with myself, Chris Ryan. We've got the club fitter extraordinaire, Trottie, over there, and we've got one absentee. We just heard that Daryl is sick or something like that, Trottie. I think it might have been the Rocket Yard Christmas party last night.
I mean, who knows? I didn't get the invite, so he's not needed anyway, because today's guest is going to make up for it massively. So screw him, and let's get the intro going, because this man, I am excited to hear from.
Hey, I'm not going to talk at all.
So we have got
questions for you. So,
so we have got an absolute banger of a guest today for you. And one of the things I've realised since starting this podcast is that in a very selfish way, I can use this as a chance to speak to some of the game's most interesting, innovative and groundbreaking people in the world of golf. And today's guest, Scott Fawcett, is absolutely that. Now, we could take this chat in many different directions. We could touch on Scott's work with some of the best players in the world, Bryson, Dechambeau, Will Zalatoris. We could also touch on his impressive playing career. Played in 1999 US Open and also recently tried to play and qualify for the US Champions Tour. Got very close. We'll touch on that. And also his impressive system called Decade, which we're going to get into, can help so many golfers. And hopefully over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll touch on all three of those. Now, Scott is someone that I've admired for a long, long time through his socials, and he's definitely shaped the way that I coach the game. At some point, I'd love to dive into your comment section, Scott, because I'm sure you get quite a bit of resistance and pushback to some of the things that you say. But for you listening, I would urge you to bookmark this podcast, grab a pen and a piece of paper, because there's going to be so much value for you. There's going to be lots of things which maybe flip some of your beliefs upside on top of their head, get you to think differently. So without further ado, Scott Fawcett, welcome to the podcast. I think a good place to start would be for anybody who's coming across yourself or Decade for the very first time. What is Decade? How did it come about? Because it's my understanding that it came from your own frustrations as a golfer. I mean, you're clearly the best golfer in this podcast, but is that correct?
Pretty much. I mean, I played professionally in my 20s out of college, and I honestly felt like I was a lot better than my scores and results showed. I mean, I won a couple times on the Hooters Tour, which, your normal 72-hole events here, but I traveled with Chad Campbell and Chris Riley, who were two future Ryder Cuppers. And I'm not going to say I felt like I was as good as them, but I've honestly felt like they certainly weren't as much better than me as their results showed. And I really am a guy that didn't even specialize in golf until I got to college. I transferred once and had to sit out. I had an injury that kept me out for a year. So by the time I graduated and turned pro, I really hadn't played much golf. And so to your question, yes, I really, out of my own frustrations, I've got finance econ degrees, so I'm a pretty good math guy. But honestly, I've actually learned over the last few years since speaking at MIT's Sports Analytics Conference, not a good math guy at all. Those guys are good at math. I'm actually good at logic and kind of bringing everything together into something that's useful. So back in 2010 was when they first released the strokes gained putting statistic. And I wrote a thread in an online poker forum that was just titled, "Is Drive for Show, Putt for Dough Really True?" And to be perfectly honest, I'm really lucky I wrote that because I was able to timestamp June of 2010 that I was starting to think along these lines. And so then once the strokes gained statistics, they for Mark Brody's book, Every Shot Counts, which is, Mark's the godfather of modern statistics. When that came out, like just a little excerpt in the Wall Street Journal saying, hey, this book's coming out that's going to explain stats and strategy and all this stuff. I actually sent an email to Zalatoris, who was just a junior golfer that I played with at my home course here, saying, man, to him, his dad, and the teaching bro, just saying, I've been talking about some strategy stuff that I think the new statistics will prove out. Luckily, this guy at Columbia seems to have probably written that book now. But I just also started thinking along the lines of how could you actually use this data, to track strategy more than anything. Again, Mark, as a Columbia Ivy League professor, the PGA Tour hired him to track statistics, and statistics are all about finding the holes in your game, whereas I wanted to find the holes in your scoring. And long story short, essentially I did a ton of work over the next 6 or 8 months, just in my opinion, solving strategy. And the week before the Texas Amateur in 2014, I got a cortisone shot in my right arm, and the doctor actually paralyzed my right arm. Obviously, it's come back since, but he told me I need to take a few months off. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I just wrote 500 million cells of Excel code trying to solve strategy, and now I can't even use it, which was in hindsight the luckiest mistake of my life, because I would not have caddied for Will at the Texas A&M otherwise. And, he wins by 4, which, again, at the time, he'd never won more in a high school golf tournament. He was 3,300 in the world. And I always was, when we were playing together, I'm like, this kid stripes it. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And I played a lot of golf with Fred Couples in the early 90s when he was number 1 in the world. And I'm like, that's the only person I've ever seen come close to this 17-year-old kid. And obviously his putting's a little sketchy, but I was like, he should still be crushing junior golf with this. And so, long story long, he wins the Texas A&M and US Junior with me caddying for him. And the SMU golf coach at the time is someone I'd known since college golf. He was at SMU when I was at Texas A&M. And he told me, he's like, dude, you have no clue how dumb kids play. And again, that's not a cut, that's not a put down. Really, it's because the prefrontal cortex has not finished developing yet. And so it's not even that you're dumb and make bad decisions. You're literally not even capable of making good decisions, because you have to be able to synthesize all of your experience into a coherent decision, which they just literally can't do. So you can take the smartest guy on the planet, and for the most part, they still can't make a decision. So the SMU coach asked me if I could teach it to Bryson in some way, but I would need to do it in an indoor seminar. So I really made the decade seminar for Dechambeau when he was still at SMU, presented that to them in February of 2015. A couple months later, wins the NCAA's and US Amateur. And, then at some point it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy where the best players in the game started seeking me out, especially in the college and young professional ranks. And at this point, I've worked with a third of the PGA Tour in some form or fashion, whether that's directly. They had the Decade app in college. They bought it after getting out of school. And, that's the somewhat quick 30,000 foot view of it all.
So when you're looping, I mean, that's unbelievable. When you're looping for Zalatoris, I get it. He's young at that point and he respects you because you've had your early playing days to go and develop such a great product. There's a great story that I know from a friend of mine who played a final round of golf in a European Tour event with Darren Clarke. Clarkey turns up, not feeling great from the night before, obviously eating something that he shouldn't have eaten. I'll let you decipher that as you see fit. And Billy Foster pretty much said to him the whole way, okay, Clarkey, that club there, that club here, that club there. Is that how it is or was with Will and anyone else you've worked with, that they down tools on strategy and turn to you and go, Scott, you're in the driving seat, mate. You just tell me what's going on.
Zalatoris 100%. So, I caddied roughly 100 rounds for that guy. We really had a lot of fun that first summer, 2014. Like I say, I caddied for him. He won the Texas A&M and US Junior. I also caddied for him that summer, actually, when in the US Amateur. He finished third out of the 312 in stroke play qualifying. And then he beat the world number 4 and world number 5 in the first 2 rounds. And again, at this point, Will's still just trying to get the confidence, because the night before, he's playing Jordan Ebrogi in the first round, who had just played the Masters. He's just like, he's like freaking out. I'm like, I literally got a piece of poster board, and I wrote down his scores. I wrote down his matches and what he was relative to par and everything. I'm like, you have destroyed everyone along the way here. And it's like, caddying for him was so much more about confidence. And yes, I did just tell him, this is the club, this is the target, this is the shape, this is exactly what I want you to do. And God bless the kid, because he actually did do it. Like, it's really difficult to take some of these targets and not feel like you're just playing way too conservative. I need some birdies and blah, blah, blah. And it's funny, because that first year, if you'd asked me what happens, like, what's going on here, I would have said, oh, it's all the math. I'm a genius. It's all the strategy. And in hindsight, it's all the psychology, mainly because I'm not a genius, mainly because I am an idiot and was the biggest hothead in professional golf in my 20s by a mile, which, again, it's one of those deals looking back at it, it's like, how dumb are you to think that this is a productive way to play golf and compete with the best players in the world? And so much so that there was a quote after he won the US Junior, basically, that I was playing him like a video game. And it really felt that way to some extent. I mean, as a concrete example, through the first 6 holes in the State Am, he had hit every single golf shot within a foot of exactly where I was telling him to. And I swear to you, I was walking to the 17. I'm like, he was like 1 under. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this kid would be 6 under if he was firing at every single flag. And driving home that day, I think he shot 67 or 68 in the first round. And driving home, I was just dumbfounded, like, man, I really think he would have shot lower if I wasn't there. Now, the caveat I will say in hindsight is directionally he hit it where I was telling him to, but the odds of him actually being distance-wise where it was really impactful is pretty slim. Tiger himself only got 40% of his approach shots plus or minus 5 yards from pin high. And really, unless you hit it inside of 10 feet, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but like the difference in 15 feet and 20 feet is not that big of a difference. The difference in 3 feet and 8 feet is 50% in your make rate. So unless you're really hitting it inside of 8 or 10 feet, the directional, because it's an XY coordinate we've got to hit in golf. So yes, he controlled the line perfectly, but did he get the gust of wind right to where the ball actually finished pin high? But now let's come back for the second round. He slept on the lead in this Texas Amateur for the first time ever. He's comes out and he's freaking out. He is so nervous. It's ridiculous. And he did actually hit it really bad that day, which is honestly the only day I've seen him hit it bad. And he shot 70. And now driving home that day, I was like, if I weren't here, he for sure shoots 77 because we stuck to strategy. We didn't start trying to force things to get him back. Again, it's one of those deals where, I just played in final stage at Q School, Champions Tour qualifying last week. And it's so hard, even in your good rounds, to not think I should be X under par, not this. In the third round, I shot 66. And I shot 66 while missing a 6-footer for birdie, blowing an easy up and down, and 3-putting the first hole a par 5 for bogey from 18 feet. Now, sure, I can finish that round and say I could have shot 3 shots lower, but saying I should have shot is completely incorrect because I made, 2 20-foot plus putts. I chipped in from absolute nowhere after being in the desert. I was in the desert screwed under a tree on my third hole, somehow hit an amazing shot to a terrible position, but at least I wasn't going to make double, and I hit this shot into the bank that goes in. And it's like, you don't get to say I should have made that 7-foot putt and not count I probably should have made double on that hole. And again, at the end of the day, all of that's irrelevant information that only leads you to start making emotional decisions. And so back to Zalatoris, if there's any one thing I did for him is I completely removed emotion from the decision-making process, which I think is the hardest thing to do in golf and also the single most important thing to do in golf.
Okay, Chris, this is going to be a difficult podcast because I've probably got 60,000 questions from that point, and no doubt you've got 40,000, but because I managed to get in before you, I'm going with the first question. Okay?
Go on then.
So, Scott, I'm basically listening to myself talk when I was in my 20s. I was a pretty good player in my early 20s, and I'm listening to myself talk. So, a couple of questions that I'm going to ask them both and then let you run with it. So, the first one is, you've said there, golf, what gets in the way of the decisions is the emotion. Massively. Like, that is 100% me. How do you get a young, good player or anyone out there listening to this to overcome the emotions? There's question number one. And I'll go with question number two as well.
Probably have to repeat number two to me.
Yeah. From an equipment point of view, if we look at Will Zalatoris, the thing that people are going to talk about, and you've said it softly, but is the putting equipment. You've also said 8 feet and under is the real number where the difference is, fully aware of all that. How did you come around? Because you must have been involved in helping him make some of these putter choices he's made with grip, with style. How did that conversation come about? How did you get there? And then how did you build the confidence? So hopefully you can remember both parts, but I know you're going to give a great answer.
Remind me number one again real quick because I was focused on number two. What?
Number one is just, I'm an emotional wreck, but not so much now. And gotcha. I'm going to get to another question I've got later on, but not so much an emotional wreck now, but how do we overcome that and control our emotions? How do we do that better?
It's not a sexy answer, but I firmly believe at this point, and I used to feel like I needed to be in California selling avocado and sprout sandwiches to talk about this 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's meditation. It's meditation, period. And so Tim Ferriss has got a great quote that I fully subscribe to where he talks about when he was younger, he would try meditation. He would get frustrated because he was still just thinking 1,000 miles an hour. He'd get pissed off and he'd slam a pot of coffee and storm out the front door. That was me in any attempt before, I would say 7 or 8 years ago. And I would even really tighten that into the last 4 years where I finally feel like I understand how to meditate and the point of it. Tiger, he started meditating when he was basically born. They've got a couple different interviews with him that are so obscure it's ridiculous. But Jada Pinkett Smith asked him, when did you get started? And he kind of smirks, and that's when you can usually tell this is a real answer coming. He just kind of smirks. He goes, when I was born, and that's based on his mother's Buddhist background. But what we want to do with meditation is we're trying to recognize that a thought is nothing more than a thought. And if you've ever heard Sam Harris talk, 100% of what I'm about to say is just regurgitating him, so I don't have to quote him every single time I talk. But once you start recognizing that thoughts technically have no power, they really don't, and you can't control them. And that's really the hardest part about it is you can't control what's about to bounce in your head, but you can not give it any power, which again, I know sounds woo-woo-y and bullshitty, but it is the truth. And it's only once you've ruminated on that thought for some period of time that you actually give it power. So I can't tell you how many times when I was playing in my 20s, I'd do something stupid and I'd be like, if I could go back 30 minutes, I would do all that different. And no, you wouldn't. You would do the exact same thing a million times in a row because you don't have the skill set necessary to not do the same thing. And that's, to me, what the power of meditation is once you understand the point. The point is not to have no thoughts. It's to recognize ruminating and, unnecessary thoughts before they spiral out of control. And again, I think Sam's got a funny way of explaining this. He says, if someone came into your house through the front door and just narrated to you what you're thinking, so instead of it just being in your head, someone just walking around saying exactly what you're thinking, you would kill them in under an hour. You'd be like, leave me alone. And I think that's the most, again, he also says, we have the exact same thoughts as a schizophrenic. We're just smart enough to keep our mouths shut, as opposed to they're just out there rambling on the street, and I really do believe in that. And the challenge with meditation, why I say it's so hard, is let's just pretend you weighed 325 pounds. You need to lose 125 pounds. The analogy is that if I gave you the perfect diet advice, okay, we're going to cheat 10% of the time. You're going to eat largely healthy fats and lean proteins, not very much processed food. And if you do that for 2 years, you're going to lose the 125 pounds. But here's the caveat. You've got to go do it for 2 straight years without losing a single pound. And then in 2 years, you're going to wake up and the whole 125 is gone. That's what meditation is. It feels really, really pointless for basically ever until at one point you're going to wake up and be like, well, I should be a lot more pissed off about this than I am. And you'll finally realize there it is. And again, I used to hate talking about it because I felt so full of shit. But really, that's the one good thing about social media is you're starting to see the insights of guys, Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Pete Carroll, Phil Jackson, the best coaches, the best players of all sports of all time, whether they want to call it direct meditation or not, they've got some process for keeping their mind in check. And at the end of the day, whether someone calls it meditation or not, if they don't call it meditation, it's probably because they just feel a little sketchy about using that word because, again, it seems like a non-answer. So that is your answer. And obviously, since I mentioned Sam Harris several times, he's got the Waking Up app. That's the one I suggest. If I've got a player that basically refuses to do it, then I'm like, well, then I don't want to work with you because that's what it is. I mean, again, a very high profile PGA Tour player asked me one time, he's like, I'm ready to get into the top 30 in the world. What do I need to do? And I'm like, well, you look like you're pouting out there all day long. This is what you need to do. And he's like, that doesn't feel right. I'm like, cool. And I just stopped talking to him. Like, that's it. There's your answer. I mean, and again, I don't charge these guys so that way I can fire them or they can fire me. And, it just is what it is. Now, to your second question with Will, yes, I was involved in a lot of them. It's interesting because the kid was so stubborn when he was in high school. I mean, I hate saying yips, but I do say it just because, again, it's like saying meditation. It's just such an offensive, challenging word. But at the end of the day, he had a growth spurt when he was 12 or 13 years old where he grew like 15 inches. And I do believe that as your bones are growing that much, you're stretching the nerves, ligaments, muscles, everything. He also specialized in golf at that exact time. So he goes from playing other sports to just nothing but golf, which we all know now is throwing so much force into the handle and into your bones. And you just don't have the strength when you go through those growth spurts as a kid to really handle the forces of additional bone mass and everything. And I do think that that's where he got himself into a bit of trouble initially. And then he just was so hard-headed and wanted to stick with a traditional putter because he just didn't want to look like he had the yips at a young age. And so he literally fought it forever, sticking with a conventional grip, conventional Scotty forever. And finally he went to the claw with a conventional grip that summer, which I'll also say was a huge part of his improvement. And then, yes, throughout the next couple of years, I've got videos with us trying a long putter, a belly putter, crosshand. I did a lot of tinkering myself to figure out what felt better. And honestly, I putted traditionally. And then once I went to the claw, like that's how I still putt to this day, because I'm like, this is just a better way to putt. I do believe that having your wrist perpendicular to each other adds stability. I really do believe that. And you see a guy like Scotty, I don't know if he was or wasn't starting to feel a little yippy or anything, but like, I do think that's a better way to putt. And maybe you just do it inside of 10 feet and there's some inflection point where you start going to regular. But, again, watching Will, especially more recently in the last few years, what he did that first year on tour with the arm lock, he was a dead-on 0 strokes gained putting per the stats in 2022. But that also doesn't include the match play where he finished 5th, the Masters where he finished 2nd. He shot 61 on the alternate course in either the desert or North course at Torrey where they don't have stats. And Data Golf, I'm pretty sure, because they do great work where they go ahead and finish those rounds out. Data Golf, I believe, had him at like 40th or 50th on the PGA Tour in putting that year in 2022. And I'm like, that's kind of the higher end of your range, man. Like, not everybody gets to hit it Bryson length. Everybody can hit it further, but not everybody gets to be Bryson. And Will, you're just not going to be a plus 0.9 putting guy. If you're in that plus anything, that's a hell of a year, and you are going to make $15 million because everything else is so good. And so I do disagree with the tinkering he's done in the last year and a half, 2 years with the longer putter, with just everything he's doing. I just think that he needs to go arm lock, and that's it. And I'll finish off this idea on Zalatoris' putting. After he finished 2nd in the Masters, he goes into the British as one of the favorites. And because of the PGA Tour ethics clauses, I can't say anything. But everyone's got, I got Zalatoris. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, he's not your guy in the British. The British are slower greens that don't break much. Your line becomes more important on those. The Masters are anywhere with lightning greens. That's his deal because really, honestly, nobody's making a whole bunch of putts. It's who can have the shortest second putt, which he's got some of the best speed control on tour. And that's because ever since we started working together, that's almost exclusively what he focuses on in practice. And so, again, that year in 2022, he was 2nd in approach putt performance, which is the average length of your second putt. So this guy, yeah, he's terrible inside of 10 feet, and terrible is a very relative statement. I mean, he's 3% worse than tour average from 3 to 5 feet. I get it, it's ugly, but the ball still goes in the hole for the most part. But then he is above average in make rates in every bucket outside of 10 feet. He's above average in 3-putt avoidance, even while being bad inside of 10 feet. And that's because his speed control is pretty much the best on tour.
So did you see a big difference from Poana on the West Coast through to getting over to the East Coast when it went obviously to Honda and stuff like that?
Sure. I mean, it's a huge difference. And again, this is where there are skill sets in putting where, again, speed control, I say that speed control is all that matters in putting. I try my hardest to not say it that definitively, but it's just all that matters. I mean, Max Grazeman was 2nd in strokes gained putting this year. And he sent me a text afterwards. I'm like, man, great work. After this little run he's been on, he's like, you talking about his putting. He's like 2nd in strokes gained, putting. And I guarantee you, nobody practices their speed more than I do on tour. And
same as again, Jason Day, right? Jason Day is big on that.
Same as Maverick McNeely. He led strokes gained putting the year before. Again, in the Decade app, there's a foundation speed drill, which is just a modification of the drill that Cameron used with Jordan and everyone else back in the day. It's a leapfrog drill where if you're doing a leapfrog drill, the prior putt starts getting in the way, so you have to start going offline, which then makes the putts break. I just modified that to where instead of leapfrogging the prior putt, you're moving yourself backwards. So you're trying to roll it into zones. And if you're successful, you're moving yourself 6 inches backwards. then you can keep a pretty straight putt. You can go out to about 40 feet. You can use 7 or 8 balls just because it's easier to do since you don't have a caddy when you're just practicing. That's the speed drill that Max and Will and Maverick use. And then Maverick, actually, because he's a wizard, modified that drill to be 5 to 15 feet. And it's just, that's obviously in the Decade app as Maverick's modification. And it's just a brilliant way to do essentially a leapfrog drill, but you're doing 5 to 15 feet uphill and downhill simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, one after another. That'd be impressive. You're hitting one backwards and one forwards with your backstroke. But really, once you start realizing that that's the thing to focus on, it's just, I'm not going to say it's not that hard. It's extraordinarily difficult to have great speed control. But at the end of the day, just like I say, anyone can get to, 50th on tour in driving distance, but not everyone can be Bryson. I do believe that anyone can get to positive strokes gained putting against PGA Tour numbers, which I don't think people realize how good that is. If there's one thing I think Mark Brody did get wrong, love you, Mark, that I do think he got wrong in his book, he said that if there was a professional putting tour, nobody on the PGA Tour would make it. And I firmly disagree with that. The top 25 guys on the tour, I don't have very much data on college players that are actually positive strokes gained putting. And back in the day, this is 5 or 6 years ago, the college coaches were like, my guys are getting really dejected throwing up these -1s and -2s every day. Can you get us a different data set? So I literally created a data set of college for them to compare against. And I'm like, what? Rather than, sticking our head in the sand, like, yeah, you're -1. We need to get better. Like, I just don't understand that point. But there are just very few people that are actually positive strokes gained putting because people don't realize how good that is.
So talking, strategy, Scott, and kind of what you would do with players. I mean, there's a quote on your website from Will. We keep talking about Will, but he's put, you've given me 25 years of experience in 5 days. Like, that's pretty impressive. So if we take the average golfer,
that was literally just a text he sent me. I mean, it's not like I was trying to build and market some business. He sent me that text after the tech examiner. I think that's important to know. But carry on.
So when you're working with tour players or when you're working with the general public, what's the biggest difference, do you feel? What do you have them do which is so different? Is it the clubs that you get them to hit from the tee or into the greens, or is it the targets that they choose? What's the biggest thing that I'm trying to think of this from, the amateur golfer who's listening to this thinking, I want that 25 years of experience in this podcast. Is it choosing targets, or is it club selection, or is it a combination of both?
I hate saying this, but it's all of it, man. The Decade and the Decade app, it is a math-based system that works really, really well. I think that you can tell how good it works because we're now 10 years in and there's not been a single person that's created a competitor. Not one. And there's plenty of people that hate me that would love to do it. And again, it's looking back at it, I'm like, I don't know where I came up with some of the ideas. Like, when I was caddying for Will, I was just doing a ton of math in my head to pick these targets that first year. And once the SMU coach said, can you teach this to Bryson? I'm like, man, I don't know. And I sat down for like a month. And looking back at it, I wish I'd made some notes along the way, because one of the most important things of Decade is picking your target starting from the edge of the green that the pin is located closest to, not starting from the middle of the green and then working towards the pin. So target selection is certainly one of them. Commitment and discipline to that target sounds obvious, but basically 100% of the tour players that I've worked with, not named Tiger Woods, basically pick probably pretty good targets, and then they kind of hope they pull it or push it close to the pin. And it's funny because I feel like obviously you guys have played golf before. There's an inflection point of when you're not good enough to even understand, like, what are you talking about too? Oh shit, I do that every round. I mean, again, looking back at my professional career, I think I probably picked decent targets, but if my target was 7 yards right of a flag for whatever reason, then I would hope I pulled it close to the pin. And this is so bizarrely dumb because almost by definition, it's a difficult shot. That's why we're aiming so far away from the pin. And now you're putting this non-committed swing on it. So yes, it's target selection. Yes, it's commitment. The first E of Decade, expectation, that means expectation management. I mean, realizing that, especially for anyone probably listening to this, just hitting the green from almost any distance is a pretty darn good shot. Now, the hard part about that is that doesn't mean just aim for the middle of the green. If you're playing number 18 at St. Andrews and you hit it 250 off the tee, you've got 100 yards left. That green is 52 yards wide. The middle of the green's a terrible target. If you're playing number 10 at Pebble Beach and you've got 200 yards into the green, middle of the green is a terrible target. You should be aiming almost at the left edge of the green or left of the green. There's just so many nuances like that I do believe it's all of it. And I feel so salesy saying that I hate it. But like Will said, you've given me 25 years of experience in 5 days. I've now boiled that down into about 5 hours of tutorial content in the app. And I get an email at least once a week. Hey, I've got a member guest this week and just bought the elite version. Can you give me the cliff notes for that? I'm like, they're already the cliff notes, man. Like, that's it. I can't distill it any further than those 5 hours. I apologize.
The second D in decade is discipline. You mentioned a section there about when you were working. I don't want to take it back to Zalatoris, but this is going to start there and we'll move from it. You tested different putting grips. It got you in a place where you're using the claw. I know you use a mallet from recent videos you've posted. So you realize that then ties into the first D of decade, which is distance. Because if you don't strike your putting out the center with a mallet, you're going to get more speed out of a high MOI putter. So that covers that. But how do you keep or get that discipline? For example, I know I play my best aiming right, hitting pulls. And the pull turns into a pull cut, which then makes your cone with driver I can figure out where my misses are. But in the world we live in with social media, now with so much golf tuition out there, it's very hard for me personally to maintain, okay, I'm going to aim right and I'm going to pull it a little bit. I'm a little steep. That's what I'm going to do. Driver launches low, spins a little high. I've got a full swing launch monitor that tells me that. That bugs me. I can't get over the discipline of letting that not be, because I sit there and go to a photo shoot with TaylorMade and watch Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, Nelly Korda all hit the perfect numbers. That then impacts me. I come back after a flipping 9-hour flight from the other coast. Don't sleep all night. Get up, walk the dog, go straight to the golf course. Don't shoot 66 and hate myself. It's like, how do you have the discipline to be like, okay, hang on a minute. I've tested all these different things, but I'm disciplined enough to know distance is important with putting. A mallet's going to help me. This grip means my wrists are in a better position. I'm just going to play with my pull cut or pull. How do you have the discipline? How do you, again,
Already giving you that answer.
I'm going to say, don't say meditation. Is that what you're going to tell me? Sprouts and avocado and meditation. Okay. I got to go and meditate. Okay.
I mean, again, that is the answer. Everything you just said, as you're saying it, you realize is a terrible thought process, right? Like, yeah. You know it. Like, that's where one of the main criticisms I get is, this is all common sense. I'm like, cool, I don't disagree. Do you do it? Well, no.
Not enough.
I mean,
not
enough. The fried egg and no laying up guys were so hard on me for 3 or 4 years. And it's comical now looking at some of the stuff they're writing, because it's just like, oh, you mean decade? I mean, I don't remember their names at all, but the one guy from No Laying Up released this podcast a year or so ago, just like, I mean, I've really figured out over the last year that if I can just avoid double and not 3-putt too much, and I'm like, oh, you mean all the stuff I was telling you 8 years ago? You literally just wasted a decade of your life because you don't like me and how I present things? Like, that's a pretty silly way to go about it. So, yeah, I mean, the answer is, again, the answer isn't meditation, but that's the cure. The answer is you need to recognize those are all unproductive thoughts.
Yeah.
And just laugh at them. And again, like, this would be the sprouts and avocado way. And then you just set them on a little raft and you just push them down the river. Like, I mean, seriously, that's what you're doing.
I mean, I love it. I love that you answered with that. And I guess I can put you straight back onto you're able to take this forward. Where do you sit with, when I look back over time, and I've just got some examples straight away in my head that are coming to mind here. Colin Montgomery, left to right player. Tom Lehman, right to left player with the draw shots that he was hitting. Where do you sit when it comes to one shape that is your go-to and a player plays with that? And is that massive for people that you get in to teach?
That's the way you drive the ball great, is by hitting one shape exclusively off the tee. I'm not as offended if people work their irons a little bit, but you can do that because you can move ball position. You can move ball position back with a 7-iron and hit a draw if you're a fade player. You can't move ball position back with a driver. Like, The driver has to be hit from the exact same place. It's the only club in the bag that's fit for a shape. You don't do the 9-box drill when you're getting fit for a driver. And so if we need to shift our path, I'm making up numbers. I'm not an instructor, but I assume it's at least 6 degrees to go from hitting a fade to a draw. And you've got to do that from the same ball position, essentially. Like, good luck. So I don't care if it's a fade or a draw. I just want you to do the same thing. So like Will in high school, especially that first year in 2014, he was hitting kind of a stuck, slingy draw. And he wanted to hit a fade. You know, he was working with Cameron McCormick at the time, and Cameron was trying to get him a fade. And I'm like, you're just not strong enough to get the club in the positions to actually hit a fade yet. Like, again, that's why I do believe a lot of players, we used to call it high school hookers and then, you know, faders on the tour. And like, I don't think that was like intentional. Like, oh, I'm going to play a fade because it controls more. I just think your body shifts and changes in strength and everything else through that 10-year period of 15 to 25. And, you know, one thing that Sasho and Marty, the guys with Ping and everything, have shown is that the further the MOI is off the shaft, the harder that club is to draw. So I used to think players like myself, DJ, whoever that hit it hard, like we're holding on to it. And it's like, no, we're hitting it as hard as we can. I'm releasing it as hard as I can. But for whatever, you know, reason in physics, that club just doesn't want to draw as easily. That's really the reason that, again, I hate saying the vast majority of players that hit it hard on tour, essentially every player that hits it hard on tour, not named Bryson, fades it. And Bryson, the funny part about that is when you look back historically, again, I know I'm older than you guys at least a little bit, but like you'd see the guys with the strong grip and you'd be like, oh, that's a Harley grip. This guy hooks it. It's like, go find me a guy, again, not named Zach Johnson, who plays a draw from a very strong grip. And again, Zach can do it because he doesn't hit it hard. But if you hit it hard with a strong grip, I'm going to almost guarantee you work with more guys like up close like that on tour. You could probably name a couple, but like it's not many. And again, Bryson doing it from a really weak grip and then all joints move to the outer range of motion. Like he's trying to snap hook it, but because of the position he's put his joints in, he basically can't. Like it's pretty interesting. I mean, again, like when Como first was telling me about this 6 years ago, whatever it was, that's what they were doing. I'm like, damn, that's a pretty good idea. Like that's really, really interesting. Now I'm 6'1" and 230 and super broad shouldered. Like I can't even get my hands in the position he can. But I can assure you, I play better from a weak grip now than I ever did.
Yeah, interesting. When you look at set makeup based on the decade details, based on your experiences, based on tour players and yourself, set makeup, you must have come to a point where you realize West Coast, this works. This golf course, Quail Hollow, this works. A major, this works.
Not really. I leave that to guys like you and instructors. We all can't be experts at everything. Okay. I tell you where to get the ball, and then you guys figure out how to do it. I really do try to stay. It's why I'm still, honestly, it's the main reason I'm still an amateur. I would love to teach mechanics, but I felt initially that I needed tour players to help, you know, build a brand, if you will. Once I decided to make this a business, I needed that platform. And it was correct, but I also was like, if I teach mechanics, you know, Jeff Smith and these guys aren't going to send me their players for fear of being poached. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I'd say the same thing about equipment. I'm in equipment. You would be shocked at how dumb I am with equipment. I go in, I get fit. I don't listen to a word they're saying. I say, if you were me, put me in what you would put yourself in. And I couldn't tell you the shafts in my irons, and I've had them for 4 years now. I know I play a 7X, whatever the black, I can't even think what the name of it is. You probably know from that. It's the black.
Yeah. Fuji.
Yeah.
Ventus black.
It's comical how dumb I am with regards. But what I will say, where I thought your question was initially going, was how do you work on players with gapping and everything?
Yeah.
Way too many players have their 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 iron to where those clubs go, 2 of those clubs go the same distance. And so figuring out whether that's, and again, I'm talking about like slower speed, you know, 0 and higher handicaps. But I will say that every time I used to do my live seminar and some guy'd raise his hand, I would say, who's a bad wedge player in here? They'd raise their hand. How far is your 60 go? 90. How far is your 56 go? 105 or 110. How far is your gap wedge go? 135. Like every single time there was one of those 3 clubs that had more than a 20 or 25 yard gap. And then I'd ask them, okay, how far does your 3 iron go? 225. How far does your forearm go? 220. Like, let's get rid of one of those. They're basically the same club because it takes a lot of speed to get those clubs to separate 15 yards.
Yep.
And so most people like could easily drop one of those, add another wedge. So that's, to me, again, that's where I thought your question was going. Tweaking bag setup, I want you to have every 15 yards ish covered from 80 or 85 out to about 225, which is about the math of where it can work. And then whatever club goes about 30 yards longer than that, and then your driver.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to me where you're bagged. And again, honestly, I even set up my bag to where I've got driver, mini driver, and then I had like a 50-yard gap down to my 3-iron because I just didn't really ever need anything much more than that. And I wanted the driver and mini driver to be able to work both ways. So fading driver, drawing mini driver, which you can do because of ball position. Dropping back to 3-wood is really giving up a lot. Let's say once or twice around, you could use a 3-wood into a par 5, which is kind of a stretch anyways. It's usually maybe once, but I can hit that mini driver 4 times on holes that are draw biased. And so I'm gaining 0.2 shots I'm literally gaining like 0.8 shots versus dropping all the way back to 3-wood there. There's not enough par 5s I could possibly ever gain that back. And again, one of the challenges, I saw somebody post the other day on one of the social media saying, they would like to see a tour event where they play with 9 clubs, in order to try to slow scoring down. I'm like, it's already hard enough. 14 clubs isn't very many. When they came up with 14 clubs, everyone hit the ball like 200 max. So you had like a club every 10 yards. Now that people are hitting at 330, you got 14 clubs to cover 60 to 330. Like, it doesn't work very well. I'm not advocating for having more clubs in the bag, but we damn sure don't need fewer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Where I was going to go was the Tommy Fleetwood type setup, and maybe that speed being more relatable to our great players listening to this. But you've hit on it already. Tommy has the driver and then the mini driver, but he, as has Dustin, as has other players, have dived massively in more recent years. Skip the 5-wood because I think this is exactly what you're saying. 7-wood has become an option and 9-wood has become an option based on course conditions. So it's interesting to hear someone like yourself, which I'd probably put, without seeing you hit it, similar speed, that 3-iron is still something that I get. It's got to be a slightly utility 3-iron, I assume. But the 7-wood has never caught your eyes based on data.
So I had both my elbows operated on 2021. In these 6 or 7 years leading into it, they hurt so much I just picked the ball off the grass. And I'm having a hard time getting any forward shaft lane. So I've got 170-ish, again, 51-year-old amateur, 170-ish ball speed. You can crank it up in the high 170s if I'm screwing around. But I hit I can't, if I'm 80, I am chipping a 54. I cannot, for whatever reason, hit a 60 anywhere. And if I'm like 95, I'm in the inflection point of going to a 50. Like, it's comical how short I hit my short irons. So I did try a 7-wood just for fun a couple of years ago, and I hit it like probably 200. But if it was into the wind, I swear to you, I could hit it and run and catch it. Like, I could hit it full.
Spinning.
Yeah, so it's not for me. But like, again, I hate taking – I do, and I'm actually not kidding, take full credit for the mini driver coming back. I asked the TaylorMade rep at the Nelson 4-ish years ago if he'd get me a handful of mini drivers, and I guaranteed him, I'm like, I'll get him in some tour player's hand and win the Masters very quickly with this. Rather than dropping back to 3-wood on 2, 10, 13, even on 7, like I don't think you hit your mini driver any straighter typically on average than your driver, but I know I hit it like a bullet if I want to. I do believe, and again, literally the TaylorMade people said no. They were like, it didn't sell well. We don't want this out there. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyways. I bought every mini driver head I could find off of eBay and got them into quite a few guys' hands. And then I was laughing when they brought it back because I'm like, it's the greatest club I've ever personally owned. I mean, it really is. And it devastated me. I had to drop it this year because I was actually hitting my 3-iron. I was only carrying like 220, 225. And I did need something more than that. So I've got this rocket of a hybrid that I can also draw, but I can carry it like 240, 250 as need be. Again, playing Champions Tour stuff, I just driver, and then if there's a hole that's tight enough that I'm really worried about it, typically 250 running out to 260 is going to be more than enough. So I did drop mini driver this year, but that's only because of shifting to Champions Tour stuff.
So obviously, you're putting a fair bit of stuff out there on social, Scott. And that's, like I said at the start, I learn so much from what you put out there. But I always think when you put stuff out on social, it gives you a real good insight as to what the average golfer thinks and what they really push back on. And I know when I go on the golf course, I hear people say things and I hear them talk about their game, and I'm just thinking that's absolute rubbish. Things like, standing there, they're, tee and handicapper standing on a par 4. I'm saying, talk to me what you're trying to do. And they're like, I'm trying to hit it left side of the fairway because the flag's on the right. And, you can talk a little bit more about why that's maybe not the best piece of advice. But I'm interested as to what things that you discuss on social that you find does have the biggest pushback, which people don't seem to be able to relate to.
I mean, my head about exploded a couple weeks ago when I'm talking to one of the best college golf coaches in history. And he said that he tells me that he runs qualifying where they don't count birdies and eagles. They only count your over par holes. And I was like, that's brilliant. I mean, that is literally brilliant in my opinion. And I posted about that on social, and literally the podcast that I was on where I told the story, he used that clip, and everyone's head exploded in the comments about how stupid it is. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I hate the appeal to authority argument, but I'm like, I'm not sure if you know who I am, but I teach a lot of pretty damn good players, and this is what I teach them. And this game really is about bogey avoidance. I mean, that was one of the first slides in my seminar. When I was really giving it a bunch, it was stop trying to make putts, stop trying to make birdies, and winning requires luck. Those were the first 3 slides. And it's like, if you look back at your best rounds, sure, you probably made more birdies, but the main thing you did was avoid the dumb stuff. This gets even to a Monday qualifier, and people ask me, like, should I play more aggressive in Monday qualifiers? Like, you can on reachable par 5s. That's about it. You can really take on some risk because in a Monday qualifier, obviously, yes, we need to make birdies. We need to go low. So, yes, trying to get the ball up and around the green, even if you're taking on some penalty hazards, you will make more birdies, but you will also make more bogeys, probably having roughly the same scoring average. But most of the time when you try to make more birdies, you just destroy your scoring average by offsetting them with more bogeys and doubles and everything else. And I guarantee you, if a college coach played a 72-hole event where, qualifier where they did not count birdies and eagles, you would for sure find your top 5 way better than you would if you counted birdies, because with the birdies, you probably just caught some guy who just got hot with a putter, made a few 30-footers, which we probably are not going to replicate in the tournament, had a little bit of positive variance within your shot pattern. But the guy that controls his golf ball the best is also the guy that's going to make the fewest bogeys, especially on command. And that's, to me, if there's any one thing that social media can't handle, it's that idea of bogey avoidance. I would also throw in there the idea of shaping the driver one direction. There's a guy, I won't name him, Michael Finney here in the States, that teaches that just insists you have to work the ball both directions. And then he uses video from like the Masters when Will hit what looked like a draw on TV on 17. And I was talking to an instructor about this. I think it was Scott Hamilton. He goes, well, shoot, partner, even the St. Louis Arch draws and fades depending on which side you're standing of it. And I'm like, that's the best way of phrasing this. Like, you just can't, or maybe the wind was off the right or God knows what, but like the best drivers, exclusively shape the ball one direction. I will agree with you that Tom Lehman and Kenny Perry back in the day did hit those little kind of slingy draws, but they hit it every single time with the driver. And there's one thing I think that Tiger, those guys got wrong, was trying to zero him out with driver to be able to work it both ways. At least with Haney, he didn't drive it great, but at least when he missed it, it was going right. Once you start introducing the ball going both ways, and this isn't about eliminating one side of the course, which also ties into one of the main things you see of on social media or traditional, golf cliche wisdom. We eliminate one side of the course. Like, that's true, but it's not always the same side of the course. If the water's on the right, you try to eliminate the right. If in practice we've got a 60 or 70 yard wide shot pattern, how do I eliminate the hazard on the right? By drawing it off of it? No, by aiming 30 yards left of it. And by aim, I just mean centering your shot pattern. The same shot pattern exists, no matter if we're drawing or faded. But by only hitting the driver one direction, you really eliminate the double crosses. Again, so back to playing 144 holes of Champions Tour qualifying where I shot I finished 8th at first stage and missed getting status by 3 shots last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. I maybe double crossed maybe 3 drivers. There's a couple that are coming to mind, but the double cross is just like a hot pull. I mean, it's just physically impossible for me to hook a driver more than about 10 yards. And again, that's always on accident, which is like Claude and DJ when they're talking on that one clip that goes viral all the time. Like, DJ, last year, how many draws did you hit? He said, on purpose? 0.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, in my opinion, the definition of great driving. If you get the ball moving the direction you intended it to, you've got a huge margin for error. But the double crosses are always, if the wind's off the left, so you're like, I'm going to play a little hold draw right now. Well, now you've started it further right than you intended to, and your miss is a block cut with the wind off the left. It's the worst outcome possible.
Yeah, that's me.
If it's howling, I just sling a massive cut out there. If there's a tree in the way, I'll choose a different club.
I want to ask you also about, this is something which I've experienced through my coaching, and I tend to work with more amateur golfers, but you're probably going to have some data on this. And I always think this comes from, magazines and social. I'll be on the course, it'd be a par 5, and obviously the situations can change. But let's say it's a big open par 5, there's nothing short of the green, and they can't reach it. And I'm saying, talk me through your strategy. And they're going to go, my favourite yardage is 100. And I'm like, just get it as close to the green as you can. You might be terrible from 30 yards, but an average shot from 30 yards will be 10 feet. Your best shot from 100 yards might be 15 feet. Is that something that you see in the data, that basically just get it as close as you can?
100%. I mean, and again, this is where I think what you just said is what I think most people's problems are. They're like, I suck from 60. And so, okay, hit me a bunch of shots from 60. The shot pattern is 90. Again, there are some anomalies out there that just literally do have the yips from, any sort of half wedge. But again, that's the total anomaly. But it's like, yes, you hit a bad shot from 60 yards, but that is better than your average shot from 100.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is you've got to start thinking in golf in Venn diagrams. So Venn diagrams, we've got those overlapping circles where, like if we've got a dog and a cat, they're both furry, they both have 4 legs, they both have 2 eyes. Like those are the mutual properties of dogs and cats. Shot patterns and intended distance targets and directional targets, they've got overlapping qualities. So if you take a 210-yard par 3 on the PGA Tour, the shot pattern is always going to be roughly 40 yards deep, in distance control. And so let's say that we put a flat piece of grass and a tour player out there at 300 yards and said to lay it up to 90. They would lay it up somewhere between 70 and 110. I mean, that's just literally the truth, too. I mean, so maybe not quite, because the fairway would be a little bit softer than the green probably would be. But like, I'm trying my hardest to just say maybe not. But so if you're trying to lay it up to 80, especially as an amateur, on average, you're going to mishit the ball and leave yourself 100. Like that's why I always say you suck to front hole locations. Everybody thinks they hit the ball further than they do, including tour players, because we all are playing for that 90th, 80th percentile shot. And that, again, by definition, doesn't happen 80% of the time. Your average happens. And so even a tour player typically is off 3 to 5 yards on what their actual number is. I know I'm going off on a different tangent here, but where that really becomes a problem is if your perfect 8-iron is 160, but your average 8-iron, again, even kicking out short outliers, is 157. It sucks when you're 157. You need to just stand up there and try to hit it full. And it sucks when you hit it right at it and it lands 160 and releases to 15 feet long. But if you run that script 1,000 times, you're going to do better with it. Again, that's why tour players are just awful to front hole locations. But circling back to your actual question, you want to get it as close to the pin as physically possible. What if the greens are firm? Cool, you're probably going to put your next shot about 20 feet long. I'm not worried about it. Now, because by definition, what you're saying is let's take it back to 100. We're 95 to the front, 100 to the flag. You shouldn't be trying to land that 97 at all, because now you're going to come up short-sided too often, 2 firm greens. You're probably going to have 8 feet coming back for par. That's, again, it's just getting out of this idea of number 3 at Augusta is a pretty good example of this, really, even more so than a par 5. When Colton Ost and I got into an argument last year during the Masters, he was just saying, I don't understand why all these guys are blasting it up there by the green. You should just be putting it 100 yards in the fairway. I'm like, well, first of all, it's only 24 yards between the bunker and the trees at 100. So you don't get to place it out there at 100. But secondly, if I said, where would you rather try to make par from? Right here, 20 yards short of the green, or back there at 100 yards in the fairway? You'd be insane if your goal was to make par or birdie, to be perfectly honest, to not take the 20 yards. That hole with the scoring average at the Sunday pin typically plays over par. Like 4 is a good outcome. As opposed to, well, God, I'm driving it right up there by the green. I got to get a look at birdie. It's like, dude, what's the best way to not make bogey here? And then if we happen to make birdie or get a look at birdie, that's really the shifted mindset to me, is especially again for amateurs laying up on par fives, is like, where's the best place for me to make a par from? And I might accidentally make a birdie. And again, this is where people just take it, I don't want to say way too literally, but again, they get way too emotional with, well, I've got to make some birdies. I agree. But more importantly, we got to not make bogeys.
So when you see, I'm UK, you guys are both US, so we get the same golf tournaments, but different commentary. So when we're watching, golf over here, and we see a player and it's a tucked back right pin, and they're maybe going in with 7-iron and it's 180, 190, and they hit it, 2 or 3 feet left of the flag, and the pin is, say, tucked way right, and the commentator's like, that's just an incredible shot. Is that luck? In your experience, are they aiming sort of 20 feet left and have pushed it, and they're playing their round of golf, choosing smart targets, and I think in your own words, just waiting to get lucky?
The word luck is too emotional. Variance is a little bit better word to use, but if you stood on a driving range and you hit 1,000,000 shots from 180 at a flag, by definition, if you're doing it correctly, about half should be left and half should be right. You just happen to hit it on the left side of your shot pattern, and it just happened to be near the hole. I think it was Hideki that won St. Jude this year at Memphis. And he's got I think he has a 2-shot lead, and I think he hit it in the water off the tee, takes his drop, and then hits it 4 feet left of the flag. And the answer's like, that is just some confidence. I'm like, give me a break. There's zero chance that's where he was aiming that. Like, it's not offensive, but respect your audience a little bit more than that. Like, at this point, you're not getting away with it. Like, that sounded cool 15 years ago or even 10 years ago, but at this point, you're not getting away with that comment and not getting roasted, which is, again, why I wind up arguing with these commentators so much. I do believe that's variance. I do believe that so much of golf, a 1 or 2% win rate is off the charts good. A 2% win rate is literally winning like every 18 months. I mean, that's a 10-win career, which is, I'm not going to say unheard of, but it's pretty rare. I know we get, jaded by these guys that do go out like Scotty or DJ and go on these heaters, but that's not normal. Golf, it's just not the way it works. It's why, again, tennis, if I'm playing a tennis tournament, I'm playing one guy at a time. I can have a 90% win rate against those early rounds. Your best players make it to the quarters virtually every single time. That's just not the way the match play works in golf. Theoretically, I could beat Will in a round of golf right now as a 51-year-old amateur. It would be rare, but I can do it. I'm pretty sure I couldn't beat Federer, even retired, in tennis right now. And so I do believe that that's all variance. I really do. And again, as a concrete example of this, starting off in the final round last week, I had 175 or something into a decent wind. The pin is 4 from the right. I was aiming 7 yards left of it with a little flighty 5-iron. And it was just a beautiful shot. Started off right at my target, starts fading down, goes to 3 feet. And it just looked brilliant. Guys might go, oh, what a shot. And I'm like, it was, but it was kind of convenient. 2 holes later, there's a par 3 with a pin tucked on the right-hand side. My target was, again, 7 yards left of that pin, and I pulled it 7 yards. So that was just kind of like a straight shot. And it looked awful from the start off of the club face. And it's amazing how much difference a 7-yard push at the pin versus a 7-yard pull away from the pin. Theoretically, that shot that I hit to 3 feet, that should have looked as bad to my eye as the pull did. I literally missed my target by the exact same amount. And yet, one, I was just like, not bad. And the other one, I was like, oh, God, I've got 50 feet now coming across this swale. That just is what it is. It's the way the game works.
Amazing. With Decade, and I think if Daryl, our third host, was here today, he'd want to know this. Was it something that, as a business, you backed into? It fell on your lap? Because you've built a phenomenal business, though. So at what point did you start thinking, geez, I'm onto something. I need to scale this. I maybe need to get some help. I need to employ people. How did that journey go?
There was zero part of this that was intended to be a business. I mean, zero. And what's funny is, if I hadn't got that cortisone shot in my elbow, I would have been through 6 or 9 holes at the Texas A&M that first day if I had been playing as good as Will was and been like, this is stupid, and I would have thrown it away. I swear to you, I would have thrown it away, not realizing like what I had right there. And so when I quit playing professionally back in 2002, I started an electricity company, which I still own. Like that's my day job. The first 5 years of Decade is running an electricity company. And only at the originally 2014, 15, and into 16, I was doing a seminar in person because I didn't really want to sell a video series. A, I'd have to make it. And B, like you have to find a new customer every month. If there's one thing that I will say was intentional, and it wasn't from a greed standpoint, is creating a business that keeps residual going. Our average customer stays on for nearly 5 years at this point. We keep a 90+% renewal rate. And the reason that is when I first was starting, like I say, I didn't want to create a video series. But once I stopped doing the NCAA banned me from doing my seminar in person. They called it an unfair competitive advantage. They literally banned me from doing it for colleges. And I'm like, okay. Early 2016, my wife was like, are you going to do anything with this or not? Because it seems like it's good, but like, I don't know what to do with it. She's like, you got to build an app or something. I literally paid $10,000 to go to a Tony Robbins Business Mastery Seminar in January of 2016 with no ideas whatsoever and designed the entire thing there. But one thing I realized while I was there was I need to keep people in the app. Again, not from some Scrooge McDuck greed reason, but like if you just went and watched the 4 hours of tutorial content, sure, you'd probably put it into play a little bit and hopefully you would review it often. But I needed to have people tracking something to where I could send them content every week. And so that's why I chose to partner with the Stats Portal. And originally I was working with Cameron Cornick, rebuilding his Golf Stat Lab or whatever it's called. And then we just had too many disagreements on a bunch of stuff. I had something weird going on in my family, so I actually need to take a couple months off. So I punted him and then started working with Birdie Fire. And again, you track your stats in the app, and then I shoot you content every week based on the stupid mistakes you're making. And honestly, like, again, I hate for these things to ever sound salesy, but the new interface we just released is called the Tiger 5 interface. You've probably heard out on social media people talking about the 5 mistakes Tiger track: doubles on par 5s, bogeys, blown easy saves, 3 putts, and bogey inside 150. I was the one that actually brought those to light. His actual caddy right now is Lance Bennett. He was my roommate for a couple of years back when I was playing in my 20s. And he was telling me about this literally 8 years ago. Man, this tracks so much with what Tiger used to track and how he played. And then talking with Kevin Chappell and other couple of people, like they are the ones that told me, oh, Tiger told me this same thing. Because I didn't ever want to get Lance in trouble. Like, hey, Tiger told me this. Oh, now let's just blast it with megaphone. But once I found out that Tiger had told multiple people, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. He thinks it's just common, like it's out in the domain. And so our new data entry interface, you track penalties off the tee, greens and regulations, strokes gained putting in its entirety, and then the Tiger 5 mistakes. And through combinations of those things, you can still track the full GPS version, get full strokes gain and everything. You can do that. But personally, strokes gain driving is basically useless. If your home course is Harbortown and my home course is Augusta, you're going to be hitting 2-iron off the tee a ton, and you're going to be hitting it in the trees still. I'm hitting driver everywhere and in the trees rarely. If we're using the same benchmarks, you're going to look like a terrible driver, and I'm going to look like I bomb it dead straight. And so strokes gain driving is massively flawed. And I've said that from the jump. The Pac-12 coaches insisted that I have it in the app. That's the only reason I put it in the app 5 years ago. And strokes gain approach has a similar flaw in that without knowing how firm and fast and undulated the greens are you playing a peat die with water all around the place? Is the pin 4 yards from the edge or 10 yards from the edge? Like, it's not as flawed as driving, but it's pretty flawed. Strokes gain putting is pretty damn accurate, and strokes gain around the green is almost entirely based on how many chip shots you had. The year Brendan Todd led in strokes gained around the green, he was also dead last in greens in regulation. So, yeah, he was a solid chipper, but he had 9 attempts around. If you were the best chipper of the golf ball on the planet, but you hit every green, we would never know that. And so there's just a little bit of flaws and biases, whatever. So to me, the point of strokes gained is to tell you this is what you need to work on. And through the combinations of penalties off the tee, greens and regulation, scoring average, strokes gained putting, like through the combinations that I mean, like, you know what? You probably don't drive the ball as well as you should. Like, I can tell you what to work on. But then tracking the Tiger 5 mistakes, and again, those other stats that help us drill down to where you need to work mechanically, now that's what the content is tailored to you based off of at this point. And again, I do use my own playing results. Like, yeah, nobody believes in this stuff more than I do in the world, but I still do some incredibly stupid stuff out there. And it's kind of a suck up your ego thing, but I make videos based on, well, you're not going to believe what I did on this hole, and then just walk through because I'm not a unicorn. Any of the stuff I'm doing and thinking, I can assure you, you are too. And you'll start to recognize those patterns in your own game. I don't know where I got started going on that diatribe, but I hope that answered whatever your question was, because I do. Oh, it's about the business. Even after caddying for Will at the U.S. Junior, like, I was like, man, this is interesting, but it still never dawned on me, like, I can teach this at scale. I'm an electricity salesman. And the SMU coach, again, he came up to me at the U.S. Amateur in Atlanta, and he was like, dude, I don't know what you're doing with him, but you've got something here. And I was like, yeah, again, literally, I just had, this is the page from Mark Brody's book. I just had this thing laminated. I was just out there doing the math in my head. Looked like an offensive coordinator out there with my plays to call. And he was like, again, I don't know what you're doing, but if you can teach this thing, you've got something to teach here. I'm sure it would have crossed my mind, but I don't know that I actually would have ever taken the time to really do it. So like the business, I completely fell into it, which is hilarious when I look at our sales logs, every day, and we have sales in Hong Kong and Australia and America. We sold one like a month ago in the Ukraine. Like, who the hell's buying Decade in the Ukraine right now?
I think that it's an amazing story, though. Your passion for it, your energy for it, phenomenal. The one thing I want to see you do, and honestly, I've stopped watching golf on TV. I would love you to commentate on TV and take that immediately on, because it's factual, right? It comes from a place where you've experienced it yourself. You've done it on tour by playing. And I think it'd be brilliant. I think our time here has been fantastic. I did say at the top of this that I'm in a unique spot today, and hopefully you guys can hear it, but the mowers are just starting to get around the building. I'm in the most golf-located place I've ever been at the TaylorMade building to shoot. So we start our podcast pretty early on West Coast time. I went to Full Swing Studio, couldn't get in. It was 6:45. I'm like, I got to start. I got to get on this. Dived over to TaylorMade. Obviously, TaylorMade early. There's no meeting rooms. Everyone's taking them Monday morning. So I get on well with the maintenance guy at the Kingdom. I'm literally in the maintenance guy's office. And it is the most golfy place I could have picked. And I think he's recut the Kingdom this morning, knowing that I'm in here. And they've just finally got to around his office. So it's very raw. It's very golfy. But I think, Scott, it's perfect for someone like you that just bleeds the game. And like, it makes me motivated. You got me a little scared, I'll be honest. I didn't want to ask another question. Meditation, I hear you, my friend. I'm going to go and meditate.
I'm telling you, that's the answer to 90% of the problems. I mean, again, I do mean this as I am a reformed hothead, 51, less testosterone, not as worried about money as I was when I was 25. Like, there's some confounding variables here, but I really do believe that meditation process that I've gotten to where I own at this point, that's the key to everything. I hate always coming back to that, because it really does, to me, still feel like a non-answer. Like, oh, well, yeah, I don't have a pill or a magic wand I can wave at you to not be as insane as we all humans are. But I can say that just using my own experience, it is possible to do better. And again, that's, you say my passion and everything else like that. That's really, at the end of the day, what I'm more trying to accomplish. Is I don't want you, that's why I named it Decade. I mean, it was after that text that Will sent me, 25 years of experience, but I also wanted to imply we're going to take decades off your learning curve. All knowledge, human knowledge, because of language and the written word, all knowledge is cumulative. And so I'm trying to help the next generation, like, man, you don't have to be pissed off. Again, when I was in my 20s, I was a terrible putter. And when I would have a terrible putting round, I would go work on my stroke. I could do the little Tiger 2T drill perfectly. I now know that's enough information for me to tell, like, oh, my line was probably good enough. How many speed drills did I do? I just randomly rolled balls all around the green. And so that's why I do argue with these commentators enough, and why I would never actually commentate, because nobody would work with me. But like, at the end of the day, when they're talking about certain things, I'm like, that's just not how it works. I mean, Faxon being the case in point, I know we're wrapping it up here, but like, Faxon says that whenever he used to miss putts, he had to mark the comebacker, implying that it was going in with enough speed that he'd have to mark the comebacker. It's literally a quote he says.
Yeah.
I get in this argument with him. I'm like, well, I'll go look at the data. He left 16% of his putts short. That's 1 in 6 short from 16 to 20 feet. Like, but if you're a college kid, if you're Zalatoris and you hear Brad Faxon saying, I jammed him in, you're going to go try to jam him. He's the best putter that's ever walked the planet. And I'm like, that's just factually not what you did. And so I'm going to, I'm not some martyr, but I'm going to fall on the sword for everyone. So you don't have to do the stuff we did, banging your head in the ground for 20 years, getting super frustrated because it's not necessary.
It's just led me to one more question, and apologies on that. But what would you say where's your view on Rahm or a Tyrrell Hatton that can be a little volatile on a golf course?
So again, first of all, they're unicorns. Like there are unicorns on the planet. But I will say, I mean, again, I literally had Jon Rahm in my seminar for the first couple of years when I did it, because at the USAM, the one that Bryson won in Chicago, he lost in like the quarters or semis maybe. But he's on TV just breaking clubs and throwing clubs and just acting ridiculous. And I'm like, it's not your way to play your best golf. And Tim Mickelson, his coach at the time, sent me a text or email, something, just saying like, dude, you have no idea. I've seen him reel off 4 birdies more times than not after doing that. And I'm like, fair enough. The challenge in life is we never know what was behind door number 2. You never know the what would have happened if you made a different decision. But what I will say is, let's just pretend that everything is correct. He plays better golf that way. I doubt he's as happy of a person as he could or should be. I mean, I've been there. I've walked in those shoes. Now, I walked in those shoes as an unsuccessful mini tour player, and it sucked. Now, could you give me a couple $100 million and it make it worth it? Maybe, but also most of those guys do seem to have like some problems. And I will actually even say this. Most tour players are a little crazy. I mean, to get to the point of being so good in an individual sport, they're a little crazy. And so, you're going to have some guys like that somehow do, like Rahm. Look at the guy. He probably should have been in the NFL. Like, and then he could take his anger out ripping someone's head off from the defensive tackle.
Now it's all fair.
He can play in the NFL, but again, I also think that I don't think it's optimal, and I do think that it's just unnecessarily frustrating, because once you have realistic expectations, none of that's really necessary anyways. I mean, it's just not. Yeah. Last thing I'll say on it, I do believe, and maybe not for those guys, I'm speaking for myself and people that I've talked to about this, it's also a show. You're letting everyone around you know, I'm better than this. This is unacceptable. I do, for sure, myself in my 20s, it was a show for other people. It's not that I was actually so mad. It was, I'm letting everyone else know this is unacceptable. I'm better than this. And again, that's where some meditation, some real journaling, some real self-introspection, can you come to that realization of like, well, if I'm doing this as a show for everyone else and they either don't care or are hoping I do worse, like, it's your competition. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, 100%. One of the things we cover, and hopefully Bob's is going to go there before we get done. No doubt you've traveled the world with golf. You've seen some amazing things. We talk about we've got a top 10 celebratory beer list. Now, it doesn't have to be beer. It can be any beverage of your choice. But we ask everyone who comes on, have you got one moment in time where you sat down reflecting, looking over a view at somewhere with whoever you want, and you were like, this is maybe one of the best drinking moments of my life? Now, it can just be a soda if that's the point in case, but something you can look on and go like, this is pretty awesome.
Fortunately, I drink too much, but
you should have a good one then.
No doubt about it. Most people would think that it's from your own playing career. I played in U.S. Open. I made it to the finals of PGA Tour qualifying school as a 35-year-old amateur. just made it to final stage of Champions Tour Q School as a 35-year-old amateur. Those all pale in comparison to helping Zalatoris win the U.S. Junior. Standing on that green, I can't think of another time I've actually cried on a golf course. It like literally almost makes me tear up right now. You can't barely see it. This picture right there from the U.S. Junior.
Yeah, got it.
I mean, just the single most insane thing, because here's a kid. I had Corn Ferry status, again, from getting to final stage that year as a 35-year-old amateur when he was like 9 or 10, so 2009 and 10. So he's just a 12-year-old kid tagging around with me every day at the golf course. He qualified for the U.S. Junior as a 12-year-old and shot like 87-70 or something like that. And then he did it again the next year and shot something similar. Qualified at 14 and 15, and I don't remember exactly how it did, but he was super frustrated because he's like, I want to win this tournament. Like, that was the one. And I was always like, dude, you hit it so, I mean, even at a 12-year, I'm like, you hit it so good. Just, you got to stay patient. You're not going to win this thing at 12, 13, or 14, but like, stay patient and you're going to win it. It was literally the one tournament we always talked about. And then he didn't qualify at 16, and he was so beat down. And again, then to actually go caddy for him when he won it, after it had been such a focus of ours for 5 years, was just, I mean, literally insane. I cried in the parking lot after getting through second stage as a 35-year-old amateur in 2008, but that was more just like, holy shit, I'm glad that's over. That was exhausting. That was an exhaustion cry, but that was literally just standing there on the 15th green as they're getting ready for the awards presentation. Like, you can literally see me in the video on it. Like, I'm wiping some tears away and I'm taking this look and I'm like, no way this is happening. No way he just did that. And again, especially because he holed a shot from 107 on 14 to go dormy. Like, it was a 15-minute period of, this is just insane. This is just too storybook.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Scott, it has been an absolute pleasure. I was really keen to get you on because I know that I probably feel like I understand a little bit of what you talk about more than the amateur golfer out there who follows my content. I know how many mistakes I make in my game. So I'm just going to put it out there and put a massive appeal out to anybody listening to this. If you are serious about your golf and you want to improve, please go and check out Scott's website, Decade, because, well, as this podcast has alluded to, it will help you. It will help you stack the odds in your favor. It will, I guess, help you shoot lower scores without having to make any swing changes. And it's an ongoing pursuit because we're never perfect. We always come off the golf course and look back at silly mistakes and silly errors. But Scott, really, really appreciate your time and sharing all of your wisdom and your stories with us. That's the end of season 1, Trottie. So we will be back in the new year, won't we?
It is, and I think that was an absolute slammer of a podcast to finish. I'm going to go out there and say that we saved our best for the end of Series 1. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I don't know how to say this. I've been around so many people in golf, and this went on. This was a long episode because I really felt I was learning something. So thank you so much, Scott. Amazing. Great to finally get to spend some time to talk to you. Everyone, check out his products. They're all down there in the description. It's Decade. We're going to put the websites there and anything else. So thank you, guys. And Scott, appreciate it.
Thank you. I mean, the one thing I will say just as my one sales pitch is we do, if there's any pushback or questions I get, it's like, oh, I'll start this in March because I get it. Like, you're not playing golf right now. Like, you need ripsticks in the off season to work on your speed training. Most people don't think that they need. So we're doing a special through Christmas that's 9 months for the price of 6, basically saying, hey, we'll buy you your winter so that way you can go and get started on it. Because I do believe you want to be learning this in the off season when you're indoors and playing less. And then you'll get started with your golf IQ, not reverting back to a kindergartner, but you'll be kind of where you're at and or hopefully even higher. So check those out. It's decade.golf. And I really appreciate being on. I've definitely followed you guys for a while also. And it's fun for me on the flip side of the thing. Every podcast I'm on, everything like that, the people always tell me was one of their highest downloaded, if not the highest downloaded. So it's a little surreal for me still to be sitting here talking to guys like you also, because it's like, I guess I know what I'm talking about, but it's fun to see.
Well, everyone needs to jump on that deal then, because that is amazing to get that offer over Christmas, and that is I'm 100% with you, Scott. It's not the kind of thing that you can just switch on and do. You want to be doing it now, getting it ingrained, so when the season comes, you can hit the season running. So, right, Trottie, we'll see everyone in the new year.
Perfect. Thank you all. Take it easy.